Hi, it's Norman Kochnick here for Eyes on Cricket with Norman Kochnick. I'm not alone. I've got Chris Vernon here from Kent with his same hat on, this club that I've already forgotten. What was the name of the club again?
Sevenoaks Vine. They'll be pleased with you.
Sevenoaks Vine. Okay. Yeah. I'm struggling with that one. All right, Sevenoaks Vine is a roll of the tongue. So we're here today. This is part 3 or episode 3, whatever way you want to look at it, of our running player movements in the IPL. We've gone through already Chennai Super Kings, rather short period, but we talked about. That was with me. Then we followed up with both Chris and I talking about the Delhi Capitals. Now we're going to move on to the third episode or part of the series, and that'll be about Kings 11 Punjab, a part of the world that I rather like. I have a fondness for the Punjab region. Unfortunately, Kings 11 Punjab haven't got a fondness to winning IPL tournaments because they haven't won one yet. So, but they've got a pretty good side. So I'm going to get, with Chris's help, the ability to look through the IPL2021 series and who they've retained, who they've released, also option related, who they may wish to pick, and how many spots or slots they've got available. So, welcome, Chris, again today.
Thank you. All good.
You haven't got any advertising on your shirt there? What's on your shirt?
Oh, it's just a super dry hoodie. It's a pretty.
Well, that's probably an advertising style.
I'm not getting paid. Don't worry. There's no. Okay. I don't think they're seeing it.
I'm just joking.
For them.
All right. So, over to you to run through the Kings 11 Punjab scenario, their squad.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. The Kings 11. I think that they had a really interesting season last year. I think they lost their first 6 or 7 games and then won 5 of their next 6, and all of a sudden we're back in contention really, and just missed out on the playoffs. I think that they would be very disappointed with a couple of their big names, let them down a bit last season. Glenn Maxwell, who a lot of people are sat there going, how can someone like Glenn Maxwell be released? And you just think, well, if you look at his stats for last year, they're woeful. He played 13 games, 11 innings. He got 108 runs at 15 and hit 9 fours and 11 innings and didn't hit 1 6. For a guy that would have been paid a lot of money, and it must be a kick in the gut really that he's been doing pretty well in the Bash and has got 100 for Australia, I think, in England in the one-day series over here in the summer. The guy is clearly very talented, and it might just be that he just had one of those off series, whether it was the no crowd or whether it be because it was in Dubai, or I don't know, and it happens. But I would have thought they might have kept hold of him, unless they're thinking they might buy him back for cheaper, or because I'd be very.
Can you do that?
I don't know.
Release him?
I honestly don't know, but I would assume that he would get picked up by someone. I think that someone
he will.
Goodbye. So.
Well, he has an Indian-born partner or Indian derivation partner. Maybe she's been infiltrated there to play in his mind. I'm not sure.
Possibly. But we've obviously covered the Delhi Capitals in our previous episode, and they had the smallest purse available. And interesting, we've now jumped to Kings 11, who have got the biggest purse, who have got just over 50 crore.
Crores.
Sorry.
53 crore.
Which is a different currency to what I'm used to here. So I'm not sure exactly how that equates, but they've obviously.
Well, it's actually not the RS is rupees.
Okay.
The crore is the 100,000 is
okay.
1 crore.
So they've got 5.3 million rupees to spend.
That's the figuration, yeah.
Fine. And so they've obviously got quite a big purse. We can run through their current squad that they've retained, and it's a pretty good squad, especially on the batting front. I think KL Rahul was captain, who obviously was last year's. I don't know what colour hat it was. I think it's the orange hat for leading run scorer, or it's the purple. It's one of the two. But 600, just under 700 runs at 56. Phenomenal. Really, just him and Agarwal were fantastic, weren't they, last year?
Yeah, but I mean Rahul in his form last year, and even part of earlier on, he I don't know what's going on with his non-test selection. I'm a bit miffed at that one, but anyway. I know it's a bit of an aside conversation, but still I'm a bit amazed at it. All right, so Rahul, keep going as captain.
Chris Gale, who, I don't know how you can't love Chris Gale. I think he's just fantastic. I don't have enough. I mean, he made his international debut in 1999. So he's had a career of over 22 years. And even if, and he didn't play to start with last year, and they lost 6 games. He came in and just got, and he, I think he got averaged over 40 in the IPL last year, 41, and I think he's just he actually hit, so in 7 innings for the Punjab last year, he hit 15 fours and 23 sixes. So he actually hit more sixes, nearly 50% more sixes than he hit fours, average 3 sixes an innings. I mean, he's just one of those X factor players, and he's a bit immobile in the field, but to have as one of your slots, I think that he's a match winner, isn't he? And he can win a game in 10 overs, let alone 20 overs. So
he's actually very intimidating to be at a bowling end to come into it, regardless of his age. People still fear him. Look, I know him very, very well. He was once a part of Spartan. He still is a part of Spartan, the sporting goods company, and he's loved by them and I've met him quite a few times. He is the nicest bloke you've ever met.
Yeah,
he's always got time for people.
Yeah,
a lot of time for him.
So they've got Mayank Agarwal as well, who, as I said earlier, formed a pretty formidable partnership with KL Rahul. So I think that given form of the last IPL, I know that Chris Gale hasn't done particularly well in the T10 tournament at the moment. I don't know how much of that is being watched or televised in Australia or India, but he's had a quiet series there, but that's quite a bit of fun as a cricket tournament. They've also then kept hold of Nicholas Pooran, who seems to be one of the up-and-coming sort of superstars in world cricket, really.
In the short form, especially.
Yeah. Not a lot is known about him, really. And, if you look at his IPO, he played pretty much the whole IPO last year, averaged 35, 350 runs. Certainly not horrendous. Pretty good. I think that he batted a little bit lower last year. I think and I could be wrong, I think he sort of ended up at sort of the 5 or 6 role a little bit, whereas I think this year they'll be trying to get him sort of up to number 4 if they can, and have a more of a match-winning or defining role to play on that side. I see that being a pretty solid top 4. I don't see Rahul, Agarwal, Gale, Pooran. I think that could be their top 4. Certainly looking at the rest of their squad. They've obviously had quite a big overhaul with it. And if we run through the squad, Mandeep Singh, a pretty solid IPL player over the years, never really set the world alight, just always there.
That's the thing about him. He's dependable, and that's probably the key to him, I think.
Yeah. Sarfaraz Khan, Deepak Hooda, another one of those sort of all-rounder slots that can chip in occasionally when required. Hooda. Prab Hismiran Singh. As I said, not a lot known about these sort of younger Indian guys. Mohammad Shami, obviously, in the squad there.
Well, that interests me because his arm was broken during the series, and I've seen photos of him, I think maybe today or yesterday, and he still looks like it's well plastered up there. I think he's coming back in any hurry there somehow.
No. So I mean, the IPL is going to start possibly late March, early April, isn't it? Potentially even later, because I'm pretty sure I saw an article this week that the BCCI have confirmed that they're going to host it. It's going to be in India. And if it is, then they were talking, and I don't know if it will happen, they were talking about maybe just delaying the start, just to sort of allow a few things to quieten down. So he'll obviously be a massive bonus for the Kings 11 if he can be fit.
Yep.
Chris Jordan's been retained. Obviously an Englishman who, plying his trade as a short form death over specialist, bowls a very good Yorker and is pretty good. He's not even mentioned in the Test or one day sort of setups for England now, really. But when we have a 2020 World Cup, he'll be there, I think so.
Sure.
The problem is, I think, with if you were to look at his stats, the problem is when you have guys that specialise in bowling at the death, they're always going to go for runs. That's just how it is. You can get Yorker wrong, and typically the grounds are so small and the pitches are pretty flat that there's not a lot of room for any kind of missing. There's such small margins for error, isn't there? So Darshan Nalkande, Ravi Bishnoi. I'm pretty sure Ravi Bishnoi sorry, sort of broke into the scene last year and was sort of a surprise package, really. Played up pretty much every game, 14 matches, 12 wickets. not the worst. Their second leading wicket taker last year.
He's got a big future, what I can gather. So.
Yeah, went at just over 7 and over, which in the IPL is you're taking that, aren't you? So,
well, they've actually bought very. I mean, they've actually combined very well with all the young blokes, and hence they've been in a position where they've got more money than they hoped to have had spare. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see whether they use that money the way they should. All right.
Well, and then they've got a couple of the younger Indian guys, Murugwa and Ashwin, who bowls almost Paul Adam type spin, doesn't he? He's got a very odd action.
Awkward action, yeah.
Arshdeep Singh, Harpreet Brar, and Ishan Parel. As I said, not a lot known about those guys, but it might be that they have a sort of a breakthrough season this year. And as I said in the comments, feel free for guys in the Punjab or Punjab supporters just to give us a bit more info on those guys. I think that'd be interesting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Someone who's an expert on one of these things more than what we are, we're happy to hear from you. We want your interaction, so you'll see it on the actual comments area. All right, that's the squad. What about the ones released?
So it seems to me, looking at it, they paid quite a lot of money for Sheldon Cottrell last year, 8.5 crores, which is a lot of money. If it's 850 grand, Sheldon Cottrell's laughing all the way to the bank, I think there. I think the one thing that I gather from these Indian auctions is that it pays to pick established, well-known cricketers. Sheldon Cottrell had a pretty good World Cup in England in the one days, but I wouldn't say he's ever set the world light. He's different. He's a left armer, and he's got a great celebration where he salutes, and I think that's great. I think that's what Indian fans and that the IPL are, without in the nicest possible way, is certainly sort of the most glamorous of the World 2020 sort of awards, isn't it?
Well, they need celebrities, is what you're saying. They need celebrities.
Fireworks. So I can understand why he went for some money, but I think they'll be sat there thinking maybe there were better options at that price. So if we run through who's got released, Glenn Maxwell, obviously we spoke about the big show. Karen Nair's an interesting one. He's gone.
He's fallen off the cliff a bit with a lot of things. He was a triple century scorer
on debut, I think.
I feel sorry for him in a way, because if you play Test cricket so early and then score a triple century, it can really go to your head a bit. It can be hard to come down from. So
I think it's just tough in India that the competition for places is so fierce. We could probably reel off a second side that could play against England in the Test match, and you think, that's a pretty good Test 11, and these guys aren't even get considered for the first Test. So
true.
You just have to keep churning it out, and especially a lot of the Indian wickets can be batter friendly. Certainly early on, so you're just expected to churn out runs, aren't you? So I don't know exactly what's happened with him, but it does happen. Who else has been released? Hardest Villian, another tall South African sort of seam bowler. I think it's very difficult. He's played a bit in this country, played for Kent.
Did he really? Yeah.
Played for Derby as well, I think. The fast bowlers that do well offer something different, have a good Yorker, or have got good slur balls. From what I've seen of Villian, and it's not a lot, he seems to have his sort of running.
I would argue what I've seen, one dimensional up and down.
Yeah. And that's probably why once good batsmen get a hold of you, then you can get whacked a bit, can't you? So, what was his? It didn't look like he played a lot last year at all, to be fair. So, I assume that they're probably just freeing up an all-rounder bowler slot that can offer them more.
Yeah.
Jagadish Sukith has been released. Mujib Rahman, who's an overseas, Bangladeshi, I think, could be wrong.
Pretty sure, Bangladesh,
yes. Spinner. Cottrell, Jimmy Neesham, Krish Nappa, Gautam, and Tajinder Singh make up the people who've been released there. It just seems for me, looking at their purse and who they've released, that they're looking at just an overhaul. Kings 11. They've kept their squad of batters and they're good. Shami, and obviously a lot of their young, good spinners, Indian spinners. So I think that I predict that in the auction they're going to target a couple of big overseas bowlers. Is what I predict, and we've obviously outlined a couple here that they might look at.
Well, before we get to that though, the slots remaining that they have is 9, and they have in fact 5 overseas slots.
Yeah. So as you can see, they've released Maxwell, Villiers, Majib, Cottrell, Neesham. So they've released 5 overseas there. So they're obviously having an overhaul and trying to freshen up a bit, I think.
I mean, the reality is the first one that they're probably after most people are, because Mitchell Starc does normally perform very well in the IPL.
Yeah,
he's generally a very good performer. Is Mitchell Starc now? I was just only a short while speaking to his father-in-law, Greg Healy, about bringing him on to a show of mine. So that may be something I could certainly talk to him at the IPL factory. He might have some inside knowledge. Whether he wants to divulge or not, we'll see. So yeah, Mitchell Starc would be a great buy.
yeah, and I think it just replaces their Cottrell. I think if they've released Cottrell as that sort of left armour opening bowler, I think that there's probably not many better in the world. In terms of left arm, Bolt is probably the only other one that can be mentioned in the same. And I think Stark's is better bowler than Bolt, but I'm talking about as left arm seamers. They're probably the two that stand out. So the good thing, I think that Stark and Shami with, it seems to be from what I've been reading that. Shami and Jordan are the only two seamers, sort of recognised seamers in that Kings 11 squad. So it seems.
And not forgetting that with Shami must be on some sort of cloud.
Yeah, it seems to me that they're predicting that Chris Jordan is going to play quite a big role this year for the Kings 11, and fantastic for him. He's sort of, as I said, he's making his name as a death bowler, as a Yorker specialist, and what a fantastic chance for him. But if you can add Stark in there, and they're in quite a good position because they've got the biggest purse, they're going to be able to outbid, or if that's the man they want to get, then there's every chance that they can secure him. So I think that he'd be a great pickup for them, and I think that he'll go for.
They're not mucking around. They're not mucking around. They've got Mitchell Starks in their sights. I'll go through these. I'll take these ones on. Chris Morris, who's got a great deal of consistency about his play, and is a pretty fast nick. Then you've got Jai Richardson, again, a future Australian bowler. He has played already, went through an injury period. But if he's fit, he's certainly worthwhile taking. And of course, Kyle Jamieson, who's absolutely been killing it for New Zealand, hasn't he?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, that they're 3, if not 4, gun players that they're going for. They're going through a quartet of good players, aren't they?
Yeah, it seems to me from what we're reading that they've released there's some seamers, and that's where they're going to target. I think that they've got their 2 batters. I think Gale, Poran, and Jordan are probably 3 of their slots, and they're probably going to bring in 2 bowlers to either rotate with Jordan, or depending on how Gale's fitness or his form, because he can be in and out of form wise. So I'm a bit confused, and people watching might be able to tell. I don't know why Morris was released by RCB. I thought he's often not a very glamorous bowler, and he can go for runs, but I thought he had a few pretty good sort of match-winning performances towards the end of last season's IPL. I thought he did pretty well. For a side like RCB, who have often struggled with the bowling, Morris can come in and score and can win a game with the bat at the end, and he does take wickets. I know that he can leak runs, but I was surprised that they released him, and maybe he fits the all-rounder slot that they want to bring in, and they might see him as a better option than, say, a Chris Jordan, just because he comes the batting wise. So I think that they'll go for Stark, and as I said, I think their purse will allow them to get their man. I think that they can outbid other franchises who might be looking at him. Jai Richardson, obviously leading wicket taker this year in the Big Bash, and he's pretty quick by all accounts. How he'll do on flatter wickets obviously he's played at the Optus Stadium in Perth and at the Gabba, quicker bouncy wickets, so it's probably played into his favour. Flatter wickets in India, it's to be seen, I guess. So,
okay, just a word on Jai Richardson. I'm not joking. I think he's a young James Anderson.
Okay, that's a pretty big call.
Well, if you watch his bowling style, his action, and his ability to make the ball move and have a bit of seam at his young age, I think he's there's a lot of similarities.
He's a lot quicker than Anderson, isn't he? But I
don't think it's the pace so much. He's quite a clever bowler, actually.
If that's the call, then he's got to be surely knocking on the door for that Test side quite soon, isn't he?
Well, he is. If he's fit, he's had a few injury concerns, which he was actually in the Test side, and looked like he was a regular, but then injury struck and then certain other aspects of it. So, yeah, he is in line to get a test berth. Cole Jamieson, well, my God, he's impressed me nowhere in playing for New Zealand. He's outstripping somewhat both Southee and Bolt wicket-wise in the recent series against, who it was against Pakistan, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did really well.
A guy like him is tailor-made for the subcontinent sides on green seaming wickets. I think he's 6'9" or 6'8".
He's huge.
He's a big boy. And
actually, Janatul Shimona, who plays for Bangladesh, she was standing next to her. I got a great photo of him next to her, and she looked about 3 foot tall.
But there's not many better series that he could want on a home patch as a young and a Pakistan. They're historically renowned for not being so good against the seaming, swinging ball when he runs in and bowls that back of a length that they often have historically struggled with. So, I mean, he cashed in, and fair play to him. I don't necessarily see... He might be a cheap option in an IPL side. I don't know how much he'll play or how much of an impact he'll have. But, no, good luck to him. I think that he's interesting. I'd like to see him bowling at the Gabba or, at Perth or something as well, coming in the future.
Well, I've heard him called, this is more of a funny relationship. Cole Jamieson is the blonde Jofra Archer. All right, so we're just running out of time with here. So Shakib Al Hussain may be a target for them as well now that he's come off his purgatory. I think
that he'll be picked up, and I think he'll get a good price in the auction. I think that if they've released Glenn Maxwell, the big show, I think that this guy is a proven, almost a stalwart in international and 2020 cricket, really. I think that if they're looking for someone that can bat in the top order and bowl good overs, I think that he's the perfect fit for a Glenn Maxwell.
Well, he needs to do it because he's certainly been in the wilderness for a little bit in purgatory, as I described him, for the nonsense that went on with him. He won't be touching WhatsApp again, I think, in any hurry. So that's great. So we're running out of time here, so I'll actually cut there. That was Kings 11 Punjab.
Yep.
A very strong side, and despite the up and down nature of their last season, I think they could be in with a very good chance they keep their composure. So thanks again to Chris Vernon. This is
brilliant.
Part 3 or Episode 3 of our series on player movements in the IPL. This is Norman Koshnek from Eyes on Cricket with Norman Koshnek. With Chris Vernon, we'll speak to you very soon. See you, Chris.
Cheers, guys.